All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Court of the Rings on twitch.tv/LoTroStream every Friday, noon Eastern, right here. We kick off the weekend with a whole bunch of LoTro talk. That's what we're going to be doing today, including a whole bunch of talk about the Delving system. With me is Alan Mackey, our lead systems designer at the Lord of the Rings Online team. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Great. And I understand. Oh, is that an old extended or the old
That is
box
the
behind you? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the old collector's edition that we were all given after we went gold
All right.
way back when.
So, welcome everyone to Twitch chat. Really nice to have you here. Today, we're going to take a deep delve into the delving system. We have an introductory article up on lotro.com, and I'll link to that. I'll drop the link to that in chat here. But we have another dev diary coming here in the near future, and this is really as much it gives you like a whole bunch of release notes essentially too. It really goes deep into the system to answer a lot of the questions you've had about the delving system. But let's assume you don't know too much about it here at the start of our show today. So, the delving system is a new kind of difficulty and reward system coming to the Lord of the Rings Online, starting with the new missions in Before the Shadow. But it's more than just that. It's going to be expanded both forward and potentially backwards. We've got plans to do so. As we go along, not just for missions, but in other forms of content as well. So, Alan, you were one of the people who helped come up with this idea.
Yeah, I mean it was a team effort. Obviously, the systems team was asked to put together uh, a new system that would actually enhance and address some of the top end game that we uh, haven't been paying a ton of attention to in the past few releases, based off of we've been focused really on a lot of the newer experiences or early level experiences with some of our last releases. And part of what we were trying to do was create a new end game system that would allow players who are not necessarily into raids and who are not necessarily into PvMP or other forms of content, with something that they could sink their teeth into and start to get some of the gear that is actually commensurate with those people who are at the end game playing through the raids and whatnot.
Did you
And
say
one of the
raid gear?
ways
Did you say raid
raid
quality gear
I,
here in the
I did.
Delvings? Yeah.
I did. In fact, the raid quality gear is roughly tier 3 in the overall value of what it is compared to what a normal raider would get at tier 3. Someone who spends time inside of the delving system will end up getting roughly equivalent. The main difference is that you won't be getting any of the set bonuses on the gear that comes out of the delving system, though some of them do have the ability to have essences embedded on them. But yeah, it is meant to be a longer term investment, or a longer term investment for a player to go through the delving system and acquire gear that is commensurate to a tier 3 rate set.
So,
And
what was part of the the impetus for doing this, though? I mean, ultimately, what are we looking to address that we feel can't be addressed, or maybe would not be best addressed through existing systems in the
so so yeah, that's a really good question. The What we were trying to address is just a gap in the overall experience that exists for the different types of player that we have. We do have a lot of players. I should say, we have a cohort of players that spend their time inside of raids. We do. We have a cohort of players that spend their time inside of PvMP. We do. We also have a cohort of players who really just like to solo. And that's what this system was really meant to address, was those players who spend most of their time playing solo or duo, to give them the opportunity to get the same kind of rewards that players who spend their time inside of either PvMP or inside of raids, so that they had something that they could look forward to. And I think what we've actually been able to achieve is also something that will be interesting to players who are going after that top end gear best in slot items for other pieces. Part of what the delving system is doing is trying to start linking things back into the game from many different areas that currently exist. So when I say that, what I mean is we do have a 6-man instance coming with the release of Before the Shadow. It's likely going to come out a little bit after, while we finish up some of the testing. But what we're working on there is that there will be some gear pieces inside of there. that you can then address and update inside of the delving system. The same is also true with the skirmish that's going to be released. So we know that we have all these disparate systems that exist, and what we're trying to do is find a way that we can start tying these all back together and make an evergreen system that players can continue to go back to and engage in moving forward. And the real goal of the delving system is to become a system that is put in place in between our big marquee uh, expansion releases. So as we move forward, whenever there is a raid that is actually released to the public or released to players, over time, when players are moving through that, we're going to allow players to use the delving system to catch up to those players who are going through the raids. So if you are a raider, we're not taking anything away from you. Continue doing what you enjoy doing because that's what you enjoy. But if you are a casual player who doesn't really want to get involved with the difficulty that's involved with actually being in a raid or the overly coordinated effort that it takes to actually complete raids, you're now going to have an alternate path to get gear that's very close to what the raiders are going to end up getting inside of their experiences. And a lot of that is to just make sure that we're trying to connect all the different systems inside of the game through a cohesive effort and a brand new system that we're actually putting together, which is going to start with the delving system.
All right, so the core of the delving system really is about inside of these missions and Before the Shadow, and in the introduction to relevant pieces of content in the future, there's going to be a delving stone sort of altar there that we'll actually probably show you here in just a second. And you're going to be applying these zircons. These zircons amount to the level of difficulty of the delving. What ultimately are we doing here in terms of what's the reason for the other zircons? Like, what does it get us? Why are we doing this? Why are we going for higher difficulty delvings?
Yep, great question. So the whole concept is that mission givers or mission NPCs throughout the world have started to discover that there are gems that exist. And inside of these gems, they see something dark and rather evil that's inside. And what they've discovered is that if you affix these to the delving stones that exist inside of the current missions, the gems will crack and release the malice that is contained within, which is the Malice of Sauron, that is inside of the gem itself. That then spreads to the area, and by completing your delving, you actually rid the world of the evil intent that is inside of the gem itself. So you're returned with a cracked version of the object that you affix to the delving stone. And then the malice spreads into the monsters inside of the space. They will affect you as well as the monsters. And you basically rid the world of whatever was inside of that in order to clean or cleanse the gem that you had originally discovered. And it doesn't end just with zircons; it goes all the way up to opals.
Yeah.
But each one is called out for the different level that it actually provides. And I just wanted to point out that there are actually 40 missions that are found. Right now we're in Andrath, which is a very small outpost in the middle of Cardolan. There are, I believe, 13 missions that are associated with this particular location. The main hubs of Hern, Langaran, Kliger, and there's another smaller hub in South Downs, and then one in Tharbad. They all have mission givers and mission barter quartermasters who you can talk to, and you can get your missions at those locations. There are 40 missions inside of the Before the Shadow expansion.
All right, so what you saw at the very start was me actually getting a new Zircon on this character on this server, which, by the way, is our private preview server, is where I'm filming this. So this is not live right now. This has been on Bullroar in recent weeks, but this is from our private preview server, the video you're seeing here today. So some things may still be work in progress. But I'd already run some of this stuff because I was preparing for the show and some upcoming kind of press previews and what have you. So I had a used Zircon already. As you just saw, maybe if you were paying close attention, you can go to that NPC next to the missions giver, trade in your used one for a fresh one. You can go the same difficulty level that you had, really just 1-to-1, but you can also spend a little coin or something and really just get any one of the Zircons you want.
Yeah, what we're trying to do with the system, Jerry, is to make it accessible to everyone and to make it so that it is player choice as to what they want to actually do on any given day. If you want to do something that's easier and have a slow progression towards that end gear, you can do that by playing at the very early levels, or the very early tiers. If you want to turn this up to 11, you could go in at tier 10 and try them at their true difficult level, where you'll be affected by a great deal of dread, and the monsters will have brand new skills and abilities that are just meant to stop you from achieving your goal, which is to wipe out and destroy the evil that exists inside of the space.
So I'm just playing one of the kind of more undead themed, because upcoming Halloween missions here for the show today, but you saw me put in, I believe this was a level 2 agate that I just put in, because I've already done the level 1 one. Which you'll get from running your first mission. So the process to get started on this will be to visit one of the new missions in Before the Shadow and just run the mission. At the end of that mission, you will get your initial Zircon that you will then use. Can I not die? Let's see.
You probably can't. You might have it set that way. And we've
No,
actually
I mean,
changed
no, I know I
the.
can die. I'm just saying, maybe I
Oh,
should
should you
try
not
not to
die?
die on the
Yeah.
live stream.
The
So,
we did make one change to that, Jerry, where
yep.
where we're actually sending it mail to the player inside of the game.
Oh, that's
if
right.
you
That's right. We're
purchase
getting, that's
the
right.
Before the Shadow.
I
Yep,
actually
if you
did know
purchase
that.
Before the
Yeah.
Shadow, you'll get the mail, and the mail will actually have the quest starter item that you can take to any mission giver inside of the Before the Shadow release.
Yeah. So I'm just killing undead here, and as you can see, it's not the easiest thing in the world for me. Granted, I'm not the greatest player in the world either, and maybe I shouldn't stand in the area of effect things. But you can see even at a couple of, I think this is what, tier 2 then.
Tier 2,
Things are a
yeah.
little tougher than they might be for kind of your standard mission that you might be used to. So,
Yeah, and the way that we've set this up is that at every tier there is a new ability, skill, or effect that's applied to the monsters or to the player. At tier 1, it's usually some kind of an AOE effect, the ground effect that you have to just watch out for and make sure you don't stand in during the fight. Then there can be skills that open up over time. Dread is added to the player. We're working on ways that the monsters will actually see you a little bit further out from where they normally would see you. Things of that nature, where there are more challenges that are put in place. And as you move up the tiers, more and more of those are added on until they start to drop off. So from tier 1 to tier 2, you'll end up with 2. At tier 3, you'll have 3. At tier 4, you'll have 4. Tier 5, you'll have 5. From that point forward,
uh-oh.
you'll have 5 different abilities or skills that are assigned to the monsters inside of the space. They will continue to increase in difficulty, but what we've tried to do is mix and match the effects to provide a little bit of a change in gameplay each time that you do the delving system. And the way that it's set up is that you'll never hit the same. Shouldn't say never. We're planning on making it so that the flavor rotates on a rather frequent basis. To start with, we're probably going to keep it at about a week for each of these, just so we can shake out any of the issues that might exist inside of the system. But then it will move to a daily rotation. There are currently 5 different flavors that can be experienced with the delving system, and each one of those has 10 tiers of difficulty. So there are 50 different well, more than that. There's an exponential number of variants that you can play under with the 5 different variants that
And
exist, or
the
5 different
variants are
flavors that
different
exist.
kinds of malice, is the term we're using, correct?
Yes, there are different malices that exist inside of each one of those, and each of the different tiers unleashes a more potent malice as it moves up.
Do the malices impact, say, the rewards, or simply the kind of experience inside of the missions themselves?
No, in fact, the malices do impact the rewards. So as you move through the different tiers, there is a chance to get some pretty impressive pieces of gear, or you're going to hear it here first, probably because you haven't seen them much in Bull Roar. Legendary heraldries are available inside of here as well. They all come from the reward mechanic that you get at the end of completing a delving. So when you complete a delving, you are given a reward chest. That reward chest can be traded to any character on your account that is level 50 or up, to be used. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. If I'm not, my team will let me know right now. But the way that it's supposed to be built out is that everything is account bound as part of the system, so that you can trade the objects that you're getting back and forth between different characters. Your characters obviously would have to be at the right level in order to use the gear that's opened up inside of the different delving boxes. But the rewards that are actually set in here will expire in a short amount of time, so you do need to open the boxes quickly. But the rewards that you get should be viable and commensurate for the character that you're playing. And they can be anything from gear, like I said, to the traceries, to any number of different objects and rewards that we have inside of the game. So there are things along those lines. There are crafting materials, things like that. But additionally, every time that you complete a delving, you're earning the barter tokens that will allow you to purchase the gear at the end, or to purchase new new traceries that we put in for the Word of Craft, which are craftable traceries, and then upgrade materials for, like I said, the upcoming instance and skirmish items as well.
Okay,
rewards as well.
I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but this is an endgame system, so for level 140 characters, in order to access the delving system with Before the Shadow. Are we intending to change it from 140 potentially long term, or is it intended to stay endgame?
No, it's actually set for the max level of the server. So on, say, a Treebeard, where we have a max level right now, the delving system actually exists there too. So you're able to, if you get the Before the Shadow expansion, you'd be able to go through and do the missions there, as well as the delvings, because it's actually built as an endgame for whatever the endgame server level is at.
Well, fantastic. So I've already seen that question, and we will get to your questions in chat. We're kind of going through this first, and then we'll have plenty of time to get to your questions. But okay, so this will be coming to Treebeard and the Legendary Worlds and be supported at whatever their endgame cap is. How are you going to deal with the item rewards, though, for it? Are they all scaling then?
They all scale. Yeah, they all scale to whatever level of whatever the level is that's opened up.
Okay.
To make sure that it fits correctly and into the reward system, so it doesn't overpower people that are opening the items.
Okay, so now I've completed the mission, thankfully, without dying, and I go speak to Bagland here, and you'll see there's 2 quests to turn in, one for the mission itself, but then another one for really the delving agate, and you'll see I now have a level 3 delving bloodstone, that if I wish to just kind of go organically, I can now go up to level 3 with that. You'll get 10 delving writs, and that seems to be what I've gotten on all these missions, right? So 10 per, is that just sort of how it works?
They do move up. The further up the system you go, or the further tier you increase. I believe that it ticks up to tier 4. I believe it moves to 20, stays at 20 until tier 7, where it becomes 30, and then the capstone is 50 delving writs for each mission that is completed with a delving in it. And the rewards are, the delving quests can be completed up to 10 times. 10 of them can be done in a day, so you can do 10 at a time for a maximum of 500 writs in a given day.
Okay. I don't know that I've got that written in our guide, but I suppose I should probably include that, because some people may well run into that should they get into the system. So, because you're going to want to do as much as you can. So.
Yep, that's definitely true.
All right, so I'm looking at this tier 2 delving chest here. I finish out, and I get, my next level of Zircon in addition to this tier 2 delving chest. I'm just going to open this up right now, and this one gave me a box of crafting hides. I'm not quite sure what to do with all that, but there you go. So this is only a tier 2 one, though. So, and then there's my cracked agate, which I will then be able to use to get another one. Now, do I need to visit the NPC to get my agate back? Or can I take the cracked one into the mission itself?
You're always going to be able to take the cracked ones around. The cracked ones have no real value other than to trade in for a delving gem of the same type.
Okay.
Or to trade back to one that's a little bit lower level.
So if I just want to kind of go organically, just use what I have, I don't need to visit this NPC. I can just kind of go from mission to mission as long as I'm turning in the rewards and getting the next cracked agate or whatever.
Correct. The only thing that will end up happening is you will have the cracked versions inside your inventory. We haven't worked out exactly how we're going to take care of that yet, but there likely will be a way for that to be set up in the future to put somewhere else so that you don't have to carry those around all the time.
All right, I'm moving to page 2 on the Delving Quartermaster, Delving Reward Vendor. Now, this vendor is available at all the places where the mission vendors are.
Anywhere there's a mission, there should also be a Delving Barter Quartermaster as well.
Including, like, say, even the older mission people like Royal Three Peaks and
That's an
such?
important note. It's
Yeah.
only for those spaces that are currently underneath before the shadow. So it's only before the shadow that will have delving quartermasters, and only the before the shadow missions will have delvings available.
All right, let me turn down the audio here, or the music here, just a bit. We don't need this in the background. Okay. So turning in the mission, you just get same stuff that you would normally get for the mission. But let's go to the rewards. What am I looking at here with the barter rewards from the quartermaster? Because I know there's some other rewards with the mission NPC as well. So when
Sure.
I'm
So
yeah.
if you wanted to go over them real quick, we certainly can.
Yeah,
So
so like
the
what can we like we're looking at a pristine King Delver's helm, item level 467 plus, 56, 28 armor, might, vitality, physical mastery, finesse, 2 empty slots, and it disenchants into delving reds.
Yes, and we are actually in a process of revising these just a little bit. One of the things that we're going to be doing is making sure that they are at the 470 cap. They're not going to be 467. There was a small change that was made before the last bull roar that actually set them back. So they will be moving back up to the red level, red eye level. And then the disenchant will be changing a little bit. We haven't finalized where it's going to end up, but it will be more than 3, less than 10. Less than 15 total for the different tiers that they are actually at. And that's because you can find this gear inside of the actual spaces themselves. They're not just available inside of the barter quartermaster. So you can be finding this gear while you're actually traversing through the delving system. It's about a 1 in 5 chance that you'll get a piece of gear at any given delving level. Some of those will be rare, some of them will be incomparable. It depends on where you're actually at the particular time. And there are always jackpot moments where you can get an incomparable at a lower level tier. Around tier 7 is where you end up with about a 20% chance to get a piece of delving gear every time you run it.
All right, so when I'm looking at what it appears to be basically a full kind of character avatar set or close to it, and I see things like keen, resolute, benevolent, and then I go into pristine keen again, but it's a mask which wasn't there earlier. So what am I looking at, and what's the difference between this stuff?
The difference is really just the different types of gear that it is, whether it's heavy, whether it's medium, or whether it's light.
Okay.
So it's for the different character classes and the way that they actually break out.
Okay.
And all of that it should be apparent inside of the actual gear sets and gear stats that are actually on the items themselves.
Yep. All right. Like this is light. I'm looking at the pristine shoes. And so we've got quite a few, and now we're getting into on page 4 here the Gundabad word of craft. We have like haste recipe, anger recipe. So these are the things that if you've got the ability to craft them, you can get these as a reward. But you do need the ability to craft these.
Yes, you do need the ability to craft them, or you can sell them on the auction house. The way that these are all made is so that they are transferable between players, so that you can create them for yourself, or you can sell them and earn coin that way. Each one of these is, again, like we said at the beginning, the goal of the system is to be as extensible and extendable as possible. So we're trying to push this new delving system into different areas of the game. So we want it to be able to touch on crafting. We want it to be able to touch on other aspects. And one of the things that we've done with the words of craft is made them into, as you might expect, words of craft are craftable traceries that can be added to the LI system. So you can create these, you can buy these and then take the recipes, create them, and then sell the results on the auction house for other players to enjoy and use. Or use them for yourself.
What are these lumps of things? It looks like this is also for crafting, like jewelry and other skills, right? I've got a gossamer cloak thread, mithril cloak thread, things like that. What's up with
And
that?
those are the upgrades for the upcoming skirmish and the upcoming 6-man. So those will take the existing gear pieces that you get from those from the rewards inside of those spaces and turn them into a legendary version of those objects, which makes them the best in slot.
Okay. And I see a bunch of restored items as well. And repaired, renewed.
And those are the upgraded versions of the items once you actually have both.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you'll see
items
here,
together.
right?
You fuse them. Yep.
Okay, so like you would have the repaired cloak of Tom Mearden, and then the mithril cloak thread that you would have acquired, and you'll be able to do that. And then we've got a few other kind of goodies as well. We've got like some pets. I see a brick corgi, dusty netherhound. We've got a bunch of housing decorations, right? That's what this stuff
Yep.
mostly is, and all sorts of good things there that I'm sure people have already put a list together on Bull Roar. So maybe I'm not going to go too much into that. But some
And
cool
travel
things.
skills. One of the other thing is the importance of the travel skills. So there are travel skills that will be placed in so that you can make your way around to the mission givers more readily. One of the things that we're trying to do with Before the Shadow is spread out the mission givers. In the past, we've always had all these missions on the same spot, but because there are so many missions that are available, we wanted to make it so that you could travel from place to place and do missions in different locations as part of Before the Shadow.
How do you see the rewards being updated over time?
It's a good question. One of the things that we're trying to do here is to make sure that we have a support structure in place for these as we move on from the game. So every time that there is a raid released, we'll also be building out the delving system to support that next set of gear that's necessary in order to catch back up to those players who are going through the raid system. So what will end up happening is between say 2 and 3 months after a raid is released, when the majority of the player base is getting into the tier 3 zone, we'll actually start opening up the delvings again to give out the rewards that are roughly equivalent to the tier 3 gear inside of the raids. We're building this out with that in mind so that we always have a way to do that. And then the other thing we want to do is to make sure that the system is always something you go back to. So we're talking about the other rewards that can actually be placed inside of here that will always be desirable for the players, whether that's something along the lines of essences, potentially IXP tomes. Yeah, we haven't really decided whether or not that will stay there, but there's going to definitely be other things that are evergreen, short cycle, consumable items that can be used to enhance your character for either short periods or for the long term advancement of the character itself.
Now, I'm actually looking at Baglan's barter. This is the mission barterer, so this is
That is
used
mission
from
bartering.
the Greyfled marks that you get from running the missions. This is a separate set of gear from the Delvings here, although I
It
do
is.
see that they do have the map skills as well, or the travel
Yes.
skills as well. But it is its own thing, so not really relevant to the discussion here. But I did want to point out that one, you're also earning missions currency and rewards while you're doing this. And then two, also that the travel skills, like let's just say you're not very good at delvings, you're still going to be able to at least get the travel skills and be earning as you complete the missions, some of these other marks and that as well. So there you go.
Yes. And it's very important that there is a distinction between the delving and the mission. You can do the mission starting at level 20. You won't be able to do a delving unless you are at the cap level of the server itself. And the way that this works is pretty simple. It's only available if you're at the cap of the server itself. And the delving stone will know whether or not it is capable of actually bestowing at that point. The delving system itself is a player-driven choice as to how difficult they want to make it. If you want to play at the highest difficulty, feel free. If you want to play at the lowest difficulty, feel free. The overall goal is that we provide you with a track toward getting that end game gear. Say that again, end game gear on a track that is viable and attainable. It's not meant to be something that you do in a day. It's not meant to be something that takes you forever to accomplish. It's meant to be a fairly steady pace at which you advance, with those moments where you get the pieces that you're looking for while you actually complete the quests themselves. But there should always be something to go back to.
All right.
And another important note is that if you leave the mission for any reason, the delving will fail. That is actually one of the objectives, is that you have to actually destroy all of the evil before you leave the space. Otherwise, it spreads into the world.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just going to run and hopefully not die in this mission. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I thought we would tackle some of the Q&A from Twitch chat. So the first question I saw earlier on is, are full sets offered as rewards or just particular items?
By full sets as rewards. It's a long-term, or I should say, it's a long, it's a long-term like choice to go after those. There's no set gear in the way that you would expect that you would get from raids, but the actual items obviously do look good together because that's the way we built them out. But as in you get the entire set at once, no, you actually have to work toward it and buy the pieces separately,
I think I might
or
have.
find them separately inside of the space, or as a reward because it's not really in the space; it's at the end when you open the box.
I think I might have accidentally walked into a mission that's not quite ready yet.
Or because it's on the private server, you need to go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Sometimes this happens in our testing.
Yeah, yeah. I think I just happened to pick a bad one. Let me go. Let me go do that. But that's fine. I'll get my. So in this case, let's just say I died so much that I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to rethink this. I will go back out. I will have kind of, but not really, lost that zircon because I can just get and replace it with another one here.
Yeah, that's actually the whole point
Yeah.
of that was that we do know that things happen, right? The power goes out. Sometimes the game crashes. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. And the overall goal is to make sure that you never lose your ability to go back in, which is why we made the decision early on that when you actually start a delving, you get the item back that you can go back that you can use to start the same delving over again. We never want you to have to fall out of the system or have to pay back into the system to do anything else. So you're able to take that cracked version, barter it for the full version, and then start the delving over again.
Which I'm just doing on another delving here. You just saw
Mhm.
it's a real easy process to do. All right, so Druid's Fire asks, will it obviate T1 and T2 raids, though? I assume this is in regards to loot. What happens to that progression?
That progression is still going to exist, and because we're not going to introduce the enhanced version, or I should say, the gear that is commensurate to tier 3 until after the majority of players or many of the players are moved on to tier 3 uh, raid rewards, it should not completely wipe out the goal of getting those tier 1 pieces because we won't be putting out the actual delving rewards or upgrading the delving rewards until the majority of the player base that is the raiding populace has moved on to tier 3 and have been successfully completing tier 3 so that they're actually getting their rewards.
I'm going to be nice and not use the name, but this person says the name sucks. Shame it wasn't reused from something that's not called Delvings, but we chose Delvings for a reason because of its sort of
It's
allusions
the
in lore. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the connotation that was actually obviously put forth by Tolkien to begin with. That the dwarves delve too deeply. When you delve deeply into the places of the world where shadow still lurks, that's when the evil is released, and that's why we actually call them delvings.
I like the name. I'm just saying, but I guess I'm the biased. All right. Trying to keep it in mind.
I see a question from Doc Manhattan.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Is there a way to acquire gold traceries or tokens through delvings or no? The answer is yes. They are drops that will happen from the reward boxes that are inside of delvings. If you complete the delvings at tier 7 or higher, you have a much better chance of getting the legendary traceries out of those particular boxes. But there is a chance, yes.
You're the gear person, so I'm going to put Mum Murphy's question. Do you think itemization and acquisition of gear is getting a bit confusing? I mean, I think it's the reality that over the course of a decade plus in the Lord of the Rings Online, we have a lot of items out there, and I can imagine that it's getting confusing. However, I think this is part of what we're trying to do here, right? Is to help funnel people who are like, well, how do I get the best gear? Do I have to raid? And what if I can't raid? Or whatever. Or what do I do besides raiding to also get this gear? We're helping to kind of funnel people into that, I think, through this.
Yeah, I think that this is a good question, and the reason it's a good question is we were actually just discussing this morning on the team. One of the things with a game as old and as large as Lord of the Rings is, um, you do have an overabundance of rewards that are available to players, and whenever you move up a level cap, you basically completely throw away everything that existed before. And what we're trying to do, and moving forward, what we're going to try to do, is have a better understanding for ourselves, because if you think that it's difficult for you to understand, think about how difficult it probably is for us to understand and remember everything that was created all before, considering we've been doing this for a very long time. But what we're trying to do is come up with an actual better understanding and release a set or matrices for us to look at and determine how those pieces of gear are going to be pushed out. We know where we're going to. What we want to do is establish ways that we know where the best gear is going to come from for different slots, how those are going to be released, when they're going to be released, and then have an actual schedule put together as to when we have to open up the newest and best pieces that are available. This is something that we're planning on doing as we move forward with the development of the game.
All right. We did mention there will be a daily weekly cap on the number of maximum tier delvings you can run, because it would be through the 10 per day on missions, right, essentially?
It's actually a little different than that. The way it's set up is you can do 10 delvings in any given day. Delvings cannot be reset. So while you can use mithril coins to reset your missions, you will not be able to reset your delvings. So we are restricting that to a set number of delvings that you can run in any given day.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter what level, it doesn't matter what tier you run them at. You can only run 10 in any given day long period. But they do reset on a daily basis.
That daily basis being the typical 3 a.m. Eastern, I believe.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Is the rewards random or is gear with every turn in? Yes, is the answer, right? Because you get some from the missions themselves and then also things recurring from the vendor.
Yeah, so the way that we approach this was we want every time that you open one of the reward pieces to not feel terrible. Now, when I say that, there are some sad trombone moments that you will have where you will run the delving, and you may end up not getting a reward that you look at and go, "This is awesome." But what you need to keep in mind is that you are always working toward a goal, whether that goal is the gear that is on the barter vendor, or if it's just getting that random pull that works for you. Uh, you're always going to have something that is viable and usable for your character or another character on your account because they are account based. So it's the type of thing where you may not get a piece every time you run. As I said, it's about a 20% chance that you're going to get some kind of a gear drop inside of any given delving. But you're always going to earn the currency that will push you toward the items that you want from the delving barterer.
Okay. I'm not quite sure. I don't think this is particularly relevant unless I'm not quite understanding. But B4 is asking, will landscape difficulty be turned off while doing a delving? I don't think that's relevant, right? Because you don't have delvings and landscapes.
Well, delvings aren't on landscape, and I think the question is if there is a landscape difficulty modifier that exists on a given world, will that be turned off when you go into a delving? I don't believe we have put anything in to say that the landscape difficulty would be turned off. So this would just be an additional difficulty that you can apply to those servers that have the landscape difficulty turned on.
Okay. Can landscape tokens be used in the delving system?
I'm honestly not sure what that question is.
I'm sorry, I don't know either. Sorry.
No, I think that's it's a question. If we could get some clarification in the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But landscape tokens, I'm not exactly sure what they're asking there because there's a lot of
I don't think it's relevant it's certainly not relevant as a currency for the barter for the new delving system.
Landscape skirmish soldiers. If that's what you mean, then no, you aren't able to use your skirmish soldiers inside of delvings.
What about a delving that's in a skirmish? Were we to do that, then presumably you might, right?
That would be a completely different situation, and it moves into a really good point where there are some questions going on here. Will this be moved into older content? Excuse me for 1 second. I just need to clear my throat. The answer is when we eventually move these back into skirmishes or to other instances, there is a good chance, obviously, that if you're in a skirmish, you'd be able to use your skirmish soldier there. But in the initial round of missions where the delving system is implemented, you will not be able to use your soldiers.
Okay. Why is there the cracking mechanism if ultimately you can just sort of replace it or barter it? Is it really necessary to give you a cracked version back?
Is it necessary? The reason we want to give you the cracked piece back is because we don't want to force you to purchase a new one each time that you do this. It is meant to be a safeguard that if you do fail for whatever reason, real life is going to get in the way sometimes, and you might have to leave the delving midway through or the mission midway through, and you're going to fail it. We wanted to make that a safeguard available to anyone that is playing through this so that they can always get back into the system whenever they want to, whenever they can.
I think we've already been pretty generous with giving information about drop rates, but will the official drop rates be disclosed to the player base? I think we already talked a little bit about the random rates, but we don't really go into percentage of drop rates in general. Is there anything you want to say about that, though?
We don't normally give the exact drop rates on anything. Obviously, the most rare and most valuable of items are a lower drop rate than other standard items that you can potentially get.
Yeah. And in general, the more difficult, the better the stuff you get. So
that's entirely true. Yes, the higher tier that you actually play at, the greater chance you have of getting the rewards that you're looking for. The question on whether or not stones will go into the barter wallet, not right now. We are trying to come up with a better solution for that. There are some restrictions as to why they cannot go in at this point in time.
Well, I'm actually seeing not a lot of other questions. Maybe we could take a few that aren't related to Delvings if we want to.
Sure.
Delving missions do allow for 2 players to work together. It has the same grouping restrictions, essentially, as missions do, or whatever relevant piece of content they would get to in the future, right? So,
correct. Yep, it's going to be at a solo or duo to play through at the outset. And when I say at the outset, it's because we do already have plans to start pushing this back into older content and to potentially support this into newer content as well.
I must have missed a couple of barrels up front.
It's not going to be... the plan is to make this a system that we continue to support as we move forward with the development of the game and also push things back. And we've already said that the intent that we have is early in 2023 to find a way to push these into the old Tham Mudane locations of the school and the library at Tham Mudane.
Okay. Not sure where my last 2 barrels are. Unfortunately, I'm kind of.
I think. Let me see if I can get your bearings here. If you go back to the center and
there's a
turn
staircase.
Left, there's a staircase. Turn to the right.
Like down here?
If they're not in there, then if you go down to the tunnel that was even further to the right, they should be.
I think that's what
down
it is.
There.
Because I don't think you mean the tunnel to the left here. This
yeah, it'd be on the left on the other side. If you go out of here,
yeah,
that should take you back out to the wooded area.
Yeah. Oh, yep. There we go. Very nice. See, that's why we all need to have the lead systems designer watch our gameplay. So.
The funny thing is that I had to step back in and do this stuff for this as well, so it's kind of very different for me.
Nice. So let's ask a non-delving question. I've seen a couple people ask about this. We do have a new skirmish coming in Before the Shadow. It has its own reward system, but this question is asking, can we update the stats on existing skirmish gear?
On the existing skirmish gear, well, that's something we can certainly take under consideration, but we don't want to make it so that you only get the skirmish gear as you move through. You'd want to always have some kind of advancement through the system.
Yeah.
But we can take a look at
them. Will you need to buy Before the Shadow to access Delvings when you offer them for older content? I think the reason it's gated essentially at this point with Before the Shadow is because the missions are included in the Before the Shadow content. The delving system is not unlocked through a purchase of Before the Shadow. Access to the things that use the delving system today are behind Before the Shadow, but it's just a new system coming to the game. Am I correct, right?
That's correct. Yeah. We haven't actually made any kind of hard or fast restrictions on whether or not these will be something to be charged for as we move forward. But I don't think the intent is to block these off once we start moving them back into other portions of the game. So when we eventually do move them back into, say, school and library, there's a good chance that they will be there and available. If somebody countermands me, then somebody countermands me. But the intent is that these would be something that would be available to players throughout the game as we continue forward.
Yeah. Do you have to work your way up to the hardest delving, or can you just go day one once you've done sort of the introduction bit, right? Because you do have to get that initial delving kind of quest from your inventory and do that. Once you do that, can you just go straight to 10?
Yes, you can. You can go to the barter quartermaster and purchase the tier 10 delving stone, which is the delving opal, and then you can take that in and attempt to the tier 10. If you fail, you'll have the broken version, so you can always go back and barter downward if you want to, or you can try again at tier 10.
So what's this I hear on Bull Roar? We had some people a little mad at us because of the reflection damage that's happening at the really high end of Delvings. What's up with what is this? What are they talking about?
So flavor 1, which is the first flavor that we introduced, had the reflection on all of the mobs inside of the given delvings at tier 9. So at tier 9, we were reflecting, I'm pretty sure it was between 25 and 75% of damage that was done back on the player, which is a little high. So we've clearly made adjustments to that. And we've actually put a little gameplay around it, because one of the pieces of feedback that we got was that there was no actual gameplay there because you couldn't remove the actual effect that was applied. So it is now going to be set up so that the effect can be removed via corruption. When it is removed via corruption or monster death, it will splash itself onto other mobs in the area, and the damage that is reflected will be reduced greatly. But it will stack up to 3 times, but again, it can be removed via corruption removal.
I feel like I'm an idiot for going into this delving on tier 4 solo, never even having run the mission before. But
this one should be okay.
So how difficult should players expect it? Should you expect that if I'm currently let's say tier 1 raider, that I should be able to do tier 10 delvings?
I think it all depends on what your playstyle is. If you're a cautious player who tries to do things in short pulls and not just kind of plow through the content, then you can probably get through tier 5, tier 6, maybe even tier 7 fairly easily. Once you try to push to tier 8 and beyond, that's when a lot of the difficulty and mechanics really kick up. It's when you will end up with the highest amount of dread, and it's going to get more and more difficult as you play through. And as you can see here, some of the layouts of the camps are not conducive to just single pulls. So you're going to have to be very careful in the way that you're drawing the ire of the enemies and make sure you don't pull entire groups at the
Careful.
same
Well,
time.
clearly you've not watched Court of the Rings before. That's
No,
what just
apparently
happened. What's just happened is the regular scenario there. So no, but
Well, the
you're
good
right.
news
That's
is that
tricky. So
even though you died, you haven't lost the delving yet.
yeah, it's
You can
right.
continue
Just
to,
go right
to
back
plow
in.
through.
So
But yeah, I think for raiders, this is going to be for tier 1 raiders, this is going to be a fair assessment of how well you understand the limitations of your classes, and or the benefits and strengths of your classes. So I think that this is going to be one of those systems where you're going to find the tier that suits you best as a player and stay there and progress as you want to from that point forward.
all right. So let's say that I find that tier 3 is for me. Just saying. Just throwing a number out there. What am I missing out from not running, say, tier 6, 7 instead?
Probably the frustration of running tier 6, 7, and 8 instead. Because you should be enjoying what you're doing. And though your chances to get that top end gear are lower, it doesn't mean that you are stopped from getting it, because there's always going to be a chance, or there's always going to be progression towards getting better gear than you may currently have. And there's always going to be something on that barter quartermaster that will be something you may look at and say, that's something that I would like.
Can I get that good raid gear from doing that tier 3 stuff?
You can get a variant of it. It's much rarer at lower tiers. It becomes more viable to acquire at higher tiers, but you're always making that progression toward it by getting the writs at the end of the mission, at the end of the delvings themselves. I see a lot of questions on the final writ cap. Right now, the final writ cap is set to be at 5,000. The reason that we're keeping it at 5,000 is because we want to make sure that the system remains evergreen, and we know that eventually players will likely run out of things that they want to purchase directly. So when the new version of the gear opens up, you'll be able to upgrade one or two pieces, not all the pieces at once.
Yeah. I shouldn't be trying to look at Twitch chat and do combat and everything
No,
at the
it's
same
totally
time.
fine. And somebody else just asked about upgrading enough to increase the tier difficulty. Yeah, that's actually kind of the point, right? Is that when you get better gear, you should be able to start pressing forward on the different tier difficulties because you now are geared better. So it's a good test to see how well you're progressing as well.
All
and
right.
it's 5,000 on the account, not on the character.
Okay. You know, I am going to stop being on the air here, or try to stop running this mission, because it's getting a little too difficult for me, I feel. I don't want to get myself squashed over and over. Yeah, you people, all 5 of you. You're the ones I'm looking at here. Do the Delving Stones objects vanish when you accept the Delving quest?
Yes. So the way that this works is if you... no, I should clarify that. The delving stones will not disappear until you affix a gem into them. So when you take the quest, it will remain. And then, so the reason this is done is manifold, but the real purpose is that we want to make sure that you pick the tier that you want to actually go at. If you've accepted a quest from the delving stone, you will be locked into that quest unless you cancel it. When you affix a gem to the stone will disappear. And then you're locked into completing the delving from that point forward. If you choose not to run a delving, which is always going to be an option, you don't have to do this at all. It's completely up to you as to whether or not you want to. If you move into the space far enough, you will actually make the delving stone disappear, and you won't have the option to run it once you've gone too far into the actual mission space itself.
Okay. In terms of the animation, that's some kind of decent feedback. Thank you for that. All right, looks like we do have the Tolkien Professor coming up in a few minutes. So that'll be going here for the Grifflet stream. I'm not sure what... I'm not seeing anything else in chat. I guess we answered everything.
Wow,
people can see this for the next couple of hours on Bull Roar. After that, the Bull Roar preview will be over. And I think I'm just gonna, like I said, I think I'm gonna move on to one last thing before I call it a show, and that being Extra Life, if we don't have any other questions. But thank you so much, Alan, for being here with me today. We do have a written dev diary of a lot of this as well that's in process, should be published sometime next week. It's out for localization right now, and we'll get it up on the website in the coming days. Probably not before the weekend, though. Hope you've enjoyed your time looking at Update 34 on Bull Roar. And we got Before the Shadow coming out November 8th. So did you have like 80 bazillion things to do between now and then, or are you looking pretty good in terms of your to-do list?
We're actually in pretty good shape. It's exciting. It's been a challenge. I bit off an awful lot more than I thought I could chew, and I've been getting through it. So that's been fun.
All right.
And really looking forward to the release of the expansion. I think it's going to be surprising to a lot of folks. There's an awful lot to do inside of Before the Shadow.
There is. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today,
My
Orion.
pleasure.
And I will talk to you again in the near future.
Take care. Have a good one.
All right, let me real quick get you out of Discord here. And before I wrap it up, I'm going to do one more thing. And that is, I wanted to hype up Extra Life, because a week from today, we are going to be in the midst of our marathon live stream for the Extra Life organization. And I wanted to call that out before we did so. So the next Friday, I'll have the full schedule up on Lotra Stream in the coming days. But you can see we've already raised more than $18,000 with Team Standing Stone Games here for Extra Life. Now, this money goes to help sick kids at the Boston Children's Hospital. We're currently ranked 22, by the way, for those interested in the standings. But it's not really about the standings. It's really about helping the Boston Children's Hospital and helping sick kids and having a lot of fun as well. I think anyone who's been a part of previous Extra Life marathons will know that we have a really good time. We have a lot of giveaways in chat and all that as well. So join us, shall we? Or shall you? And that would be on Friday, November 4th. And pretty much all day and night. It looks like we're currently set to kick things off about 8 o'clock Eastern time and go until midnight. And it's not just me either. We've got Winnie, Little Redhead, Druid's Fire, Red Baron, Eldolith, MVP, El Galadwin, Big Ed Mustafa, and also Sans Eret, our localization coordinator. So we have a full schedule that we'll have up here. For anyone who's donated, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I did want to mention that if you donate, once you donate, please go to a forum thread that I will link to. It's on the Lotra forums, and it's our Extra Life thread in the official discussion forums. I'm posting it into Twitch chat here, and I'm going to put it up on the screen real quick as well. And the reason you want to do this is I do have some incentives that I'm giving away for your donation. Things like cosmetic pets and some in-game titles. There's also like a forum title and some really cool things. This is old hat to everyone who's been doing this over the past years, but as a reminder, I do need to get a little bit of info so I can basically get you some codes, most likely through forum messenger, but whatever works best for you. So just there's a link. I can't show you the link right now, but it's a SurveyMonkey link that'll basically just have a bunch of little check boxes and a comment box. You can say like, yo, I want 3 of these and 5 of these and, 3 of these, and here's my forum title and thank you or whatever. And so I'll capture that information. My goal is to get everything out in the coming weeks. I've said formally that I will start distribution after November 30th. That's kind of a worst case scenario. I'm hoping to get to it before then, in the coming weeks here as time permits. Probably before the Shadow's release, because I got a lot to do between now and November 8th. But that's sort of where I'm sitting in terms of the rewards for that as well. All right, before I wrap up the show, and yes, I know a lot of people have already donated, and I really do want to thank you for that. It really does mean a lot. As a matter of fact, I could mention, I just got this in the mail today. Literally a couple hours before I went live. That's why it's still in the plastic. I just got this from Extra Life. They actually sent me a plaque. And this has some artwork from one of the kids that was helped, as I understand it, from Extra Life. And it was presented to me for being a top fundraiser for Extra Life in 2021. We are historically one of the top, if not the top, donor during Extra Life to the Boston Children's Hospital. And so they always really appreciate that. My name's on it, but it's really everyone else's work. So I can't take too much credit for that, but it's very, very nice. And it'll probably go into our office space here in the near future. So, all right. Thanks everyone for being here. I'll be back next week for Extra Life. The goal is we're going to do a Before the Shadow preview. This will be very similar to the press previews that we will be doing next week ahead of the release of Before the Shadow. And it will essentially be kind of a Twitch chat version of that. We're going to take 10 minutes going through all the main bullet points, a little bit about the Delvings, a little bit about the missions and quests, the prologue, Before the Shadow's story, the new regions, everything you want to know. Just do a basic weekend, Friday before re-release style preview for the first hour of Extra Life. And for the second hour, because I'll be doing noon to 2, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. There's a chance I'm going to have someone from the Extra Life organization joining me, either live or pre-recorded. So that would be the space for that. We'll be doing some giveaways in chat, and then we'll just kind of be doing whatever I feel like. If things are looking good on Bull Roar and I want to do that, we'll do that. Might just be in the live servers hanging out and kind of doing whatever comes to mind. But we'll see. But at least the first hour of next Friday's show is going to be a formal Before the Shadow preview right here on twitch.tv/LoTroStream. If you ever miss these shows, you can find them on facebook.com/Lotro, youtube.com/Lord of the Rings. And we are there. So the archives go up a couple hours later after they process. So until next week, everyone, hope you have a great Lotro weekend. I'll talk to you again soon.